Okay, it's search warrant and we're live. We look a little bit different now, don't we? So we're on StreamYard. So there'll be nuances to what we're. Our guest today, our special guest today, is Mr. Stuart Hyde. He's the Queen's uh, Medal recipient, Queen's Police Medal recipient, QPM. If you're not familiar with that, it's a very high ranking among the police authority in United Kingdom. Again, our special guest is Stuart Hyde, uh, a Queen's Police Medal recipient. Um, and we've got Detective Jake Jacobs from Philadelphia Homicide and the Officer Involved Shooting Unit. And we've got Greg Highlands, veteran NCIS special agent. And he's from Tennessee right now.
That's correct. Yep.
He's anticipating a serious snowstorm in the future. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's got everybody worried because we don't have all the snow plows and equipment that y'all have up north.
Oh,
when is your snow coming, Greg?
I believe the storm's supposed to come Saturday morning early.
Okay.
And we have our special guest, Mr. Stuart Hyde. Mr. Hyde, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Thank you very much.
That's fine. It's good to speak to you all. Good to see you all.
As an NCIS agent, both myself and Greg are former veteran NCIS special agents. Greg worked quite a bit in Europe, so I'm sure he has a lot of questions, as we all do. But it's a unique situation that you have there. Greg, do you have any beginning questions relative to Stuart? Stuart, could you give us an idea how you got to where you got a QPMP?
Yeah, more than happy to do that. So I joined the police many years ago, spent 31 years serving at every rank up and including Chief Constable. I think my Queen's Police Medal, there's about 10 given out to UK police officers and staff every year. It's now called a King's Police Medal because obviously we now have a king rather than a queen.
Yes,
but mine was issued by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, so it's the Queen's Police Medal. So I think it was for two reasons. One was the amount of work I'd done for local communities in Bristol, Birmingham, Bradford, but also for the work I'd done on combating child abuse online. If you've worked in NCIS, you'll probably have heard of CEOP, the Child Exploitation Online Protection Centre, which is now part of the National Crime Agency. I basically led for UK policing on combating child abuse on the internet and created and wrote the blueprint for CEOP as a multi-agency organization based on the Missing Persons Bureau in the US. Loosely, we went much further. We wanted to bring in a lot of other organizations and make it a multi-agency establishment which works, and it's still operating, it's still bringing people to justice, and it's still rescuing people. So I'm quite pleased with that.
Yes, sir. We really need your help on this side of the pond. Greg and I were working.
So is there anything else you need my help on over there?
Yeah, quite a bit, sir. Greg and I are working on one right now that has the earmarks of everything that you just discussed.
Yeah.
It's brutal, and we'd love to have you over here just for a couple of weeks to help us out. That would be fantastic. But I realize you've got a lot of things going on. So it was the King's. It's now the King's medal.
Yeah.
It was the Queen's medal.
Yep.
Okay. And there's about 10 of them every year.
Yes, yes, and the New Year's honours, the King usually distributes between 5 and 10, and they do it twice, once for the birthday and once for the New Year's honours. It's a traditional thing that we've done here since God was a boy.
I think it's a fantastic thing, actually. It's something to look forward to.
Yeah, we do a lot of representation. We have, for example, within policing, we have it's called a Good Conduct and Long Service Medal, and it's issued around the sort of 23 years mark. It's a little medal with a ribbon and everything else, and there's usually a ceremony that goes with it. And when I was in the West Midlands Police as the assistant chief in charge of crime and operations, quite often I get the honour of being able to present them, and
Yeah.
officers come
Oh,
along with their
yeah.
families, and we have a bit of a buffet, and it's just really nice to just to thank people at that time, and say, push on, keep going, do the next few years, and then you can wander off and do whatever you want to do once you've retired. But it's a really important way of recognizing people. People like recognition, whether it's just a little certificate from the manager just saying, well done, good job, through to it being a commendation for a very heroic act, or whether it's a medal. And there are a number of police officers that receive medals for all sorts of things. But Queen's Police Medal, yeah, very proud I've got that. Just saw that this is all in a bit of a mess. There we go.
Yes, sir. They really have a lot of stuff to deal with now. You guys have particularly a lot of stuff to deal with now.
Oh, yeah. I think there's, I mean, there's sort of four areas that I think are really difficult at the moment. The first is just the complexity of harm, or complexity of offending and offences. Whether it's digital, organised, or whether it's vulnerable victims, it's much more complicated than it used to be. There are far easier access to particularly foreign offending, people coming in from different countries, either
Yeah.
bringing their own crime, or people operating within crime organisations that exist abroad. So there's that. The next is, I think, the general levels of stress within policing, which has increased quite a lot, both this side and your side of the pond, as it were.
Yeah.
Officer stress. Then there's sort of the capability gap as technology takes over. The need for skilled operatives, people that can manage AI, people that can manage uh, securing evidence from phones and things like that, is much broader. There are far more skills now required, and there is now a gap between what the police can do and what it would love to do. Again, that is something that applies both this side and the other side of the Atlantic. There's also a sort of a reduction in public trust, or a fragile trust
Yeah.
from the public. Again, both sides of the Atlantic, both North and the US and Canada, have the same sort of issues about being able to have the public trust them and support them. And there's all sorts of different issues going on around that in the UK. If a police officer does something wrong, it's filmed, it's photographed, it's put on social media, and it's round the country before the officer has an opportunity to say anything or be involved. And then I think finally there's something that I am sure this applies in the US, although I don't know, but in the UK, the police service is tending now to be the service of last resort. So covering over the weaknesses and failures of many other public organisations, particularly those involving social care, or even health service, to be honest. So the police is seen as the sort of people that have to go in when other agencies fail. And I think that's become much bigger in the UK than it ever was. So those are some of the sort of issues going on at the moment. When Anna spoke to me, she mentioned the issue about free speech. And
Yes,
there seems
yes.
to be a sort of a myth going round that the UK is somehow preventing people from speaking. There's still as many demonstrations as there's ever been. There is still the right for people to speak, and there's been no change in the law around what people can and cannot do. But there seems to be this myth, and that's been picked up that we are either not allowed to say anything or we're subject to Sharia law. I know this because
Oh my
I've got
God. Oh my God.
friends in different countries. In fact, my niece, who lives in New Zealand, um, in a conversation with actually my daughter, said, "Is it right that the UK is now subject to Sharia law?" And I always thought of her as an intelligent person, but if she's getting the idea that we are subject to Sharia law, that is absolute rubbish. No one, no one is outside the law. No one can have their own legal system, and that is just not the case. But those myths are circulating because of the needs and the extent of social media, which is distorting and substantially misrepresenting what is going on in every country. And I can imagine it's exactly the same in the US. You know, the
Yeah.
sort of social media we get about what's going on in the US, particularly with ICE and things like that, is really difficult. But you've got to just look at it and think, how much of this is true? How much of this is actually going on? So yeah, I think from the sort of freedom of speech, there's no change here. You know, we're still running along in our own country. Our government is doing okay. It's not going to set the world alight, but it's still okay. We've got the threat of the Reform Party and Nigel Farage, but I'm sure we'll deal with it.
Yes, sir. May I ask two questions?
Yeah,
I have two. I know Greg has some, and Jake has some. Just generally speaking, in the U.S., we have body cameras.
yeah.
So do you have body cameras there?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and they're an absolute godsend for officers. There's been many cases where officers have been subject to the most ridiculous allegations and have been able to protect themselves by body cameras. Unfortunately, and I'm sure this is the case in the US, there are officers who's using body cameras, and it demonstrates that they're just totally incapable of doing the job. So it does work both ways, but I've always been keen on it. It's now many agencies as well that use it, whether it's fire service, ambulance, or even care workers going around. Body cams are really important.
Yes, sir. It's the only way to protect yourself in
Absolutely.
some circumstances. Uh, yes, sir. Hey, so would you be inclined to say anything about Tommy Robinson?
Um, yes. Um, mischief maker, criminal, convicted several times, bad egg. Unfortunately, he's in that world that people like to dip into in order to get a little bit of sort of support and a little bit of noise. He is not there for the justice of people in the UK. He's only there for hatred, in my view. So I really don't have any time for him. Um, somebody said to me, anybody that changes their names publicly without having to be an actor or anything, there's got to be something strange about them. And
Yeah,
he, of course, changed his name. So
yes, sir.
yeah, I don't like him. I think he's a thug. And he's just, he says things that unfortunately some people like to hear, and he gets support from people like Nigel Farage and others, which doesn't help. But all that does is help amplify his very, very poor message.
Yes, sir. Our special guest is Mr. Stuart Hyde. He's the he's one of he's a recipient of the Queen's Police Medal, which is now the King's Police Medal. Very few that have received that medal. about 10 a year. Greg, as a NCIS veteran, NCIS special agent, has spent a lot of time in Europe. Greg, do you have any questions for Mr. Hyde?
Well, first off, thanks for being on the show. I'm kind of new to this, so please forgive me if I.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry. Go for it.
I was reading last night that you have a PhD, right?
Yes.
So do you like to be called
it's
Dr.
actually a
Hyde,
doctorate
or
in technology, although I'm
Wow.
not very technical.
Wow.
do you like to be called Stuart or Dr. Hyde, or how would you like me to refer to you?
Stuart is fine. It's an honorary doctorate. It's I didn't have to spend 16 years writing papers for it. It was because of the work that I'd done in the West Midlands and on child abuse that the University of Wolverhampton felt that I had excelled so much in that field that they gave me an honorary doctorate, which means there is a gown that goes with it. And I look like something out of sort of medieval Britain. It's very glamorous.
You get a sword? Do you get a sword?
No, we don't get a sword, unfortunately.
Outstanding. So
Just on the sword bit. Sorry, Greg.
That's right.
We've recently had a case where a guy has been turning up at Remembrance Day parades. 11th of November parades across the country with a full Rear Admiral's uniform and a big sword. And he's never been in the Navy. He's a complete and utter fraud. But he used to be a school teacher, and nobody can understand why he did it. But he looked very smart. But some bright spark identified his uniform as being completely fake, and it was the sword that gave it away.
Oh my God.
Anyway, sorry, Greg. Sorry to
my
interrupt there, mate.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. So a lot of people don't know that how your police agencies work in the UK, and from 2003 to 2005, I worked with the Metropolitan Police,
Yep.
the Met, and your SO13 branch,
Yep.
because of the detainees we had in Guantanamo Bay, and I worked a lot of cases with them. If you want to explain a little bit how the police agencies in your country divide up a little bit, because you don't the Met, they actually go outside the UK and they do casework and all over the world.
As do many other forces. Although the Met has primacy when it comes to dealing with most international issues, they are not exclusive for international work. So there's 43 police forces in the UK. Most of them are called something Shire, Leicestershire, North Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, places like that. And the Met is substantially bigger than the others. So Met is probably about 36,000 officers. The next biggest is something like West Midlands with about 6,500 officers, and Greater Manchester probably about the same. So there's a substantial difference between the Met. The Met also doesn't police all of London. In the middle of London is the City of London Police, which is a 1 square mile, tiny little force. Difference is that they have sort of gold on their hats, and you used to have to be 6'2" in order to join it, which meant they didn't have many female officers.
No kidding, 6'2".
But there's also the Royal, the British Transport Police, the Nuclear Police, and a couple of other very, very tiny forces. But that whole system is being subject to a big debate at the moment, where they want to reduce the number to 10. Which I think is almost inevitable, because it's very difficult to have a whole police force with 1,000 officers. I know that in the US that would be on the large size, but in the UK now, that running a whole police force with everything that goes with it, including your logistics, your command center, your control rooms, and things like that, is becoming not competitive. So I think it's inevitable at some stage we will move to a model. It may not be 10, it may be 15, but it will be a lot less than 43.
When for instance, in the U.S., For instance, we have a local law enforcement for, just an example, Boston. Boston has a local police department. And then we've had one case we've examined. It's a Boston transit police, right?
Yeah.
Sergeant Finnerty. Now, you also have transit police as well, right?
Yeah, British Transport Police, we call them.
Okay. Are they connected in some way, or
Yeah, yeah.
are they individualized?
Right, they're actually funded by the railway network, so they're not funded in the same way as other police forces, but they do extend across England and Scotland, though not in Northern Ireland. We've got
Is,
loads of little weird things like that, um,
is
and they are integrated in. And in theory, their powers only act within a couple of miles of a railway line. However, in practice, that because we've got a lot of railway lines, that still covers most of the country.
Yes, sir. Is there a difference for your average Joe? Is there a difference in law enforcement between England and Scotland, for instance?
No, not really. There's a few legislation differences. They have the Procurator Fiscal, we have the Crown Prosecution Service. They tend to arrest by arrangement. We tend to arrest immediately. But the differences are minor, to be honest. They're procedural rather than practical. The training that an officer gets in Scotland, in England, in Wales, or even Northern Ireland, or British Transport Police is very, very similar.
Wow. So there's actually 43 law enforcement. That's very interesting. I would have never guessed that number.
It's
I would have.
actually more than that, but if you take the 43 plus British Transport Police, Civil Nuclear Constabulary, there's a couple of small ones. For example, the Mersey Tunnel, which goes underneath the River Mersey, has its own police force. It's about 5 people.
No kidding.
There's the
Wow.
Royal Parks Police, which is being brought into the Met. I mean, again, another small force, a couple of hundred people, maybe 100 people. But those numbers are, I mean, you've got 18,000 police forces. And I can remember being in Washington and having a discussion about a particular type of crime, if it's committed in a particular location, could have something like 18 different law enforcement agencies claiming priority, and that can be confusing. We tend not to have that, although sometimes we do have what we call blue on blue, where we do have disputes between which side of the river a body lands and things like that.
I think the big difference, and one of the things that I found very interesting, was that you have a domestic intelligence agency as well that works hand in glove with the various police agencies.
Yeah, well, each police force will have its own intelligence setup. There'll be a regional intelligence setup, and then there's a national intelligence setup through the National Crime Agency, and they are all linked through into obviously our MI5 and MI6. And when we get to a terrorist incident, all hands on deck, and everyone works together on those. That actually works very well here. Major incidents, big disasters, policing works very, very well. The things that we get wrong are generally the more local relationship issues, relationships between communities, or relationships with individual communities.
Yeah, I can remember, like in 2002, I think it was summer of '03 when I was over there working, that they gave us a good tour. And again, I'm not beating up on any ethnicity, but the UK usually, and in other parts of Europe, they usually suffer the growing pains before we ever did. So your growing pain at the time in the summer of '03 was you had a large Somali community in the London area, and we were going into some of these neighborhoods where you used to patrol with two beat cops would walk through the neighborhood, and I was told at the time that they had to go like a squad deep to go into some of those neighborhoods at the
There
time.
are some neighbourhoods where it's more difficult to patrol on foot alone than others, and I think that's across the globe. You go through Europe, you go through Africa, South America. It's just exactly the same. People will have areas that they feel frightened of because they don't know the individuals, or because they are genuinely a threat, and it's trying to get the intelligence to spot whether you're able to operate in there safely, or whether you are at risk.
Yeah. So there's 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States, and there's 43 in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things you mentioned, Stuart, I mean, I guess it always has been that way in law enforcement, where the locals and the feds and things of that nature always butt heads in law enforcement, so to speak. And another thing, sometimes the beat cops, to Greg's point, know more about the community than someone. When you say you're the assistant chief, you're going to get the information from the beat cop who's going to transfer up the line to you. So sometimes it's better. I don't know whether they're scared or not, or just know enough to know that I can't go to that street with too deep, so to speak, too
Yep.
often. I'm going to need a quote unquote squad or squadron.
Yep.
But Greg is also right when he says the problem seems to hit Europe before it comes across the pond, so to speak. And when you're going back 20 plus years, because we got a big thing right now with Minnesota, as you very well know, the Somali community, law enforcement, all this thing is wrapped up to what you're saying. But it was in Europe 20 years ago. And I don't know why America, intentionally or unintentionally, didn't get the memo, if you can explain.
That's a lot of issues there. You're absolutely right. I'll start off with your first one, which was about listening to local cops. Local cops generally know what's going on. They know the risks, they know the areas. And my guess is the conflicts that you've got, particularly in Minnesota, is about imposing a national body that's not listening to the local cops. They're not taking their lead from the local cops, and the local cops don't feel that they are being listened to. Whereas I think when we have the National Crime Agency, as it is now, when it comes in to help out with an operation, they always go through the senior levels of the police force concerned, and they work hand in hand with local officers. So it wouldn't be unusual for a local beat officer to be approached by an NCA officer and ask for advice and information. Clearly, if it's so sensitive that they didn't want to do that, then they wouldn't have to. But in most cases, they do. All of our officers have the same journey. So apart from a few who come in direct entry, everyone has worked from the bottom up. So I was a constable, I was a sergeant, chief inspector, etc. So I know what it's like to be a street cop. It may be slightly different now. They've got different tools, they've got different forms and different ways of doing things, but the principles are exactly the same. You walk out the street, you decide whether you're going to go left or right, and you try and intervene and try and look after your local community. And you get to find out who lives in your community and what they're up to. And I think that's still valid. And those people generally have some of the best information. And anybody trying to undertake a policing activity really needs to be able to go down and liaise and have a good relationship with those individuals. I mean, when I was in the West Midlands, we've run operations with and exercises, particularly with all sorts of individuals. You know, that we ran firearms operations or firearms exercises, sorry, with the SAS, because when you need them, when you want them to come in for something, you need to know who they are and how you work together. So there is that sort of level of collaboration which does exist between the sort of national organisations and local. Excuse me.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. When you're an agent and you're assigned 2 states, and you have search warrant to do in the middle of nowhere, your go-to experts for that area are the local police.
Oh, without doubt, without doubt.
You know, you don't want to go to their office and say, I'm a big bad federal agent. You know, you'll do what I say. That's bullshit. You know, you want to uh, establish cooperation with them and show that they are a part of a significant part of your team, because you're going through a search warrant with an entire house by yourself, which is crazy. Which is crazy. And if you don't have their assistance, you're screwed.
Sorry,
You
it
know?
just froze for a couple of seconds there. I missed the last sentence that you said.
If you don't honor their help as local law enforcement, you're really screwing yourself, because you got to.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And that's about respect. You know, if you're going into an area and you don't understand what the local community's gone through, you've got no history, then yeah, that's going to create problems for you.
Yeah. Greg, did you run into any problems over there while you were working over there?
No, I had very fond memories of working over there with the Met, and um, we worked very long days, and we drank a lot of pints together after hours, and then we got up early the next day and started all over again. And
We had proper beer as well. That would have
yes,
that would
and
have
I will
helped you.
advise anybody that works with the police over there that if you do go drink pints afterwards, don't try to buy the half pint glass.
Yeah.
You
No,
can't
no,
get
no,
away
no.
with a half pint glass. You have to have a really big boy 16 ounce pint.
I've done a lot of work in the last 2 years, well, last 3 years in Vietnam, with the Vietnam police, helping them to understand how to get evidence out of mobile phones for use in human trafficking.
Wow.
Vietnamese human trafficking is a massive problem. It's a big problem in the UK, but their biggest problem is actually human trafficking of mostly women into China for marriage. But notwithstanding that they are such lovely people. They were so good, and you go out for an evening after the day's training or the week's training, and they were exceptional hosts, and they
Yeah,
adapt.
I got to tell you, the Thai police, when I was in Bangkok, saved my ass
Yeah.
several times. Don't go down that street. Don't go down that alley. Do not go down that alley. And
Oh,
and I
the
went down the alley, which was
Vietnamese
a
police
mistake.
would take us down that alley and then find some exceptionally rough-looking place that served the most delicious food you ever tasted.
Yeah, that's true. But if it wasn't for them, you know, I haven't. I've been in Europe very briefly, but Greg spent most of his time, I think, in Europe, while I spent most of my time in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So we've got everything kind of covered to a certain degree. But I will say, Thailand. In Thailand, I had the best law enforcement experience. They saved my ass several times.
Yeah, my father lived in Thailand for about 20 years in Ubon in the north.
Really? I set camp up. We set camp up in Pattaya Beach.
Oh yeah, that's where he was first of all.
Yeah.
That's why he ended up marrying a Thai lady, but he was married to her for longer than his other three wives put together.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised actually. At night, trying to we have operations. Greg can probably tell us whether they're still happening or not, or were still happening. Where you arrive prior to the ships and clean it up before the ships arrive,
Yeah.
and it's a real son of a bitch. Excuse my French,
Hmm.
because they're trying to get everybody on board right away, and you take interesting trips down alleys you shouldn't go down.
Oh yeah.
But you're saving a lot of young men and young women a lot of devastation by cleaning that up.
Yeah, the Vietnam experience was really good in terms of the enthusiasm to learn was incredible. You know, they just wanted to find out how they could use these tools. Unfortunately, um, geopolitics comes into play. The key tool that they use for abstracting data from phones is owned by the Israelis, and because of a disagreement with the Russians, the Israelis won't update the tools in Vietnam. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, so
Wow.
they've got some tools, but they can't use them. And it's like, well, how do you get around that? So I found other ways to help them out.
Yeah, I think there's I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Pacific, law enforcement in the Pacific, uh, they take risks that they probably don't take in Europe. Um, opening opening jails and firing stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
while you're sitting around eating goat. I mean, I've had a chance to eat a variety of things as much as you guys have. I think in strange places in the world, but while you're doing so, you get into some weird conversations and weird circumstances. But
yeah.
you don't want to offend them either.
Now, I've taken one for the Queen when I was in China. I was head of a delegation with the Chinese public prosecutors organization, and we had this huge dinner. And so as not, as the head of the delegation, I had to go around to each table, and there were 10, and consume a glass of wine at each. And that was just before we started.
Oh
I
my
refused to do that because I would have been legless. And then the food that they served was just incredible. Everything from chicken feet to pig's ears and stuff like that. But you just have to um, try it.
I'll bet you've been to some interesting dinners in Thailand, right?
Oh yes, Thailand,
They bring
absolutely
everything
exceptional. Absolutely exceptional.
when they bring everything.
Yeah.
They don't hold
Stuart,
things back.
can you explain to us what is the criteria for the Queen's Medal? Is there
Yeah.
certain criteria?
Basically, you're put forward by usually the chief constable or the crime commissioner for the police force in which you police, and they do assessments on a regional basis, and then they put them up nationally. So the assessment, it's not really, well, it's a write-up which includes something that you've done specifically for policing. So for me, it was around all the work I'd done on combating child abuse on the internet, and that work was substantial and impactful, and I think that's the reason they gave it to me. You don't get to read the citation. You just go and get your medal at the Buckingham Palace, which is really
Wow.
nice. The family come along as well.
Oh, that's nice. Dr. Hyde, when you were in Thailand, do you remember where you stayed?
We stayed mostly in Bangkok. When I went there a few years ago with their police training academy, and then obviously my father lived either in Pattaya for the first couple of years, and then up in Ubon, which is a most amazing place.
Yeah. The I found their hotel very easy, very interesting in
Yeah,
that you've got so many ethnicities staying at that hotel.
yeah,
That's my roommate, not my roommate, but the room next door to me
yeah.
was handled by was occupied by oh people from the Middle East. They
Yeah, yeah.
removed all the furniture from the hotel room. You know, they all they had left were pillows and stuff. And downstairs was another story. Downstairs was quite a different story. You know, it was very interesting. It's very interesting. People should understand what's happening there.
It's a I love it. There's a place that I used to enjoy going. It's called Soy Cowboy. It's a road full of bars where you can just about have anything. But uh, at the end was this little sports bar. We could sit and watch some of the most amazing sports, football and rugby and cricket and all sorts of things on there, and then just watch all the people walking down and walking through, the Katoys, the local Thai ladies, the tourists. So it's just incredible people watching. Absolutely lovely.
Boy, you hit the nail on the head again. People watching. That's the ticket. That's the ticket.
No, he
Hey,
was talking about Thai ladies. He was talking
Yeah, yeah.
about the bars and the Thai ladies, and maybe he would end up staying there 20 years. That's what I got from that comment.
yeah.
I think that's why my father stayed there. I just enjoyed it. I loved it. And when we were up in Oban, we went to some shows and they were just great. The entertainment was good. They're all lovely, friendly people. I've got to say that my experiences in Vietnam surpassed that. I really enjoyed Vietnam. Lovely place. People were very friendly, and how they've survived is they're friends with everyone. The first country to do a deal with your president was Vietnam, and they're not part of the charade that's going on at the moment with tariffs and stuff like that. They've just got in, got a deal, got out. Um, they are an amazing people.
Yes, sir. We have a couple questions. Is there a
Yeah.
problem? Is there a problem with open borders in the UK?
No, well, we've gone through a thing called Brexit, where we sadly, and you'll guess which side I was on, we sadly broke out from the European Union. And as a consequence, we've taken back control of our borders. What that means is whenever we travel anywhere now, particularly into mainland Europe, we have to queue up for hours and have passports checked that we didn't have before. So every country in the EU has free passage. Outside of the EU and getting in or out of the EU is now much more challenging. And they will be doing the equivalent of an ESTA starting next year. So if I go to, for example, the Canary Islands, which is, although it's in Africa, it's actually part of Europe because it's Spanish, I will have to have the European equivalent of an ESTA next year. That's new coming in. We have a lot of issues in that people can get into the EU, then their primacy is to get to the UK because we are definitely more considerate to asylum seekers than any other country in Europe. And as a consequence, people want to get across the channel. We are an island, and the best way to get across the channel is in a boat. It used to be in a lorry, but and that's now, I wouldn't say it's stopped, but it's a lot less. So they just come on boats. They have these big rubber dinghy things that turn up, and people get on it and come over the channel. And then they claim asylum, but they are already in a safe country in France, but France does not want them to stay there.
Yes, sir. May I ask, for those who are inquiring, if there's a incident wherein a individual uh, is killed as a result of transiting, who would investigate that?
Right, joint investigation. So there was a case of a lorry that came across the channel, and when it was stopped, it was it was about a couple of hours after it passed the channel. Somewhere in Essex, and it contained, I think it was 72 bodies, and they were all Vietnamese. The investigation was managed by the UK, by Interpol, Europol, French, Belgium, and then every other country that they went through right the way back to Vietnam. And people were prosecuted and were locked up as a consequence. It was a major investigation, and did it actually that led to the scheme that set up the collaboration that I was involved in trying to help them with human trafficking.
I see. So that answers the question. So I think we've covered this question, but do the police agencies in the UK share information?
Yeah, absolutely. We have national systems that make it easier. The Police National Computer, as it's sadly called, it has a lot of information about convictions, people that are wanted, people wanted on warrant, about their fingerprints, DNA. We have one of the largest law enforcement DNA databases in the world, and it's easy to access, and we keep DNA even of people that are not convicted. So if somebody is arrested, we can get their DNA and we can put it straight on the machine to see if they're wanted for something. That works very well. And those are national systems. We also have a national ballistics system. We don't have anywhere near the firearms incidents you have in the US, because we don't all possess guns. But we have very, very efficient ballistic systems that can register both the weapons and the ammunition that's used, and that's the national system that's available to all forces.
Well, just by your multidisciplinary attack towards child abuse,
Yeah,
we can add that to other things, right?
yeah. The CEOP was set up with police officers from across the country. They manage larger investigations. So if somebody is suspected, and then we look at trying to find whether credit cards are used, what they've been doing to buy access into different sites. Once they've got that, then they'll spread that information back out to forces to go and make the arrests. And we've had some major successes from that.
Yes, sir. Do you know anything about? The only reason I'm asking is because it's been a big deal in Canada. The CIFA, where there are ostriches. Have you heard about the ostriches in Canada? Where they ostriches, birds, large birds.
Yeah, go
Have you
on.
heard about them at all?
No.
Okay, CIFA, I guess, is a Canadian food agency,
Yeah.
and they were saying that the ostriches had a certain degree of disease and were subsequently killing all the ostriches, which
Yeah.
really pissed off, excuse my French, really upset all the Canadians to the nth degree. Which brings me to your
We've
thoughts on.
had that in the UK with mad cow disease and various foot and mouth disease, which really impacts on farming communities. First of all, it shuts them down. Nobody can go across unless they walk through disinfectant. They're not allowed to transport cows. And in the end, quite a lot of them have to be slaughtered. And we've gone through probably 3 or 4 in my lifetime where that's happened right across the country, and that's been devastating. There's another one that chickens get, and yeah, people say we shouldn't do it, but it's about protecting the ones that haven't got it and protecting the rest of the animal community.
Yes, sir. I will tell you that you're a big hit on LinkedIn. Doctor, you're a big hit on LinkedIn. People like to hear from people that are actually there and know
Yeah.
what the hell's going on. Thank you very much. So that can you draw any conclusion in the difference between law enforcement in the UK and law enforcement in Canada?
I think most people that want to be a cop, whether it's in Canada, US, or UK, or anywhere else, generally do it because they want to do good. They have a high moral compass. They usually have a sense of wanting to serve their community and to help protect people. They have a sense that they want to bring justice, not just for victims, but for society. Then they get trained, and then some of them go astray, but the vast majority do not. And I found this visiting police in all different parts of the world. There is something that sort of is not quite a DNA thing, but there is. You have to be something different to become a cop. And whether you're a
Doctor,
cop in Canada, US, or UK, you usually have the same sort of purpose.
Doctor, I got to tell you, you're echoing the words I gave to a podcaster yesterday in Chicago. I was on a podcast for 2 hours in Chicago,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the law enforcement profession. The most important, in my view, the most important aspect of law enforcement, regardless of where it may be, is your moral compass.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you brought that to attention. You know,
It's really important that people understand what they're trying to achieve. Unfortunately, some people don't have a moral compass to start with, or they lose it. And it's a small number of people. Unfortunately, because of social media and because of the news, that gets expanded and amplified far greater than the ill that they do.
yes, sir. While we're on it, can I ask you? I take it you've had an opportunity to see, for instance, for example, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, where all the federal law enforcement officers uh, receive training in the United States, in Glencoe, Georgia, an old Glenport in Georgia.
I haven't been to Georgia. I've been to Quantico and various other places, and local training centres in Boston, places like that, and also training centres in British Columbia.
Yes, sir. How do you equate the UK law enforcement training to the United States training?
Oh, good question. I think the UK training has become it's become a bit like a jigsaw. So there's different parts of it now that don't seem to fit together very well. So you can join the police in the UK in um, different ways. So you can go in as an apprentice police officer. You can go in as a detective police officer. You can go in as an inspector. You can go in through um, the route that involves a university degree. There's many different routes, and I think we've lost the way because I joined in a time when you went to a regional training center, you all learnt together, you then went and did some local stuff before you were out on patrol, and then you had a police officer that looked after you, a tutor police officer. there was some structure to that and some simplicity to it. It's now become less of a career, joining a career, and more of just getting a job. So I'm not so keen. I tend to think that the US excuse me, the US models and the Canadian models tend to be more militarized than the UK ones. We don't rely on sort of lots of marching and all that sort of stuff. My
Right.
perception was that you were certainly in Quantico and places like that. There's a little bit more on the function of discipline, but differences are minor, really. And of course, in US and in Canada, there's far more emphasis on firearms, where most of our officers do not and never will carry a firearm.
Yes, sir. The I've one of the things I found in my career that was most helpful was to be able to have a mentor. So
Yeah,
we'd show up at a burglary at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the mentor would go. We'd get to the door, and he would say, "So, where's the crime?"
yes, yeah.
Uh,
We call them tutors, but they are coaches, mentors, and I think that was my mentor was a guy called George Rowe, and in fact he ended up getting an MBE, member of the British Empire Medal,
wow.
from the Queen, not for being my tutor, but for being a really good community officer. And he did a lot of work with local people in some of the most deprived areas of Bristol, and an absolute hero to me. And I never lost that thought about what local cops can do.
Yes, sir.
But yeah,
You never forget their name, do you?
no.
And the things they say, they don't realize how important they are.
Yeah.
When you get to that door and they say, "Where's the crime?"
Yeah.
It stays with you forever.
Yeah, and then there was, I can tell a little story of, I was out with another tutor, not George, somebody else who will remain nameless. And we went, right, we were working a set of 7 nights. One night we went round and this guy had parked his car in the most ridiculous place. And the officer went and said, "Look, do you mind moving it?" Anyway, the next night we went round, "Do you mind moving it?" And this guy was just being very, very aggressive. Anyway, the next night we get a call to go back because somebody has let down every single tire. And this
Wow.
officer said,
Oh,
"Well,
God.
if it wasn't parked there, maybe that wouldn't have happened." And I'm absolutely convinced that he was the one that did it. Absolutely. But it achieved the purpose. And there's always, more than one way of skinning a cat, as they say.
Yeah. Well, remember George Floyd, for the George Floyd case
Yeah.
in Los Angeles? We had a stolen vehicle that ended up in the Badlands,
Yeah.
North Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and we were processing it. And I'm thinking to myself, "There's going to be somebody behind me.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people behind me." And I look, we're dusting the windows and dusting the steering wheel and stuff like that. And I turn around, and there's like 30 people that
Ah,
want to do something for help us out a little bit. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Needless to say, the other agent, I told the other agent, "We got to get out of here, and we got to get out of here right now.
Yeah.
Just get a vehicle to get this vehicle out of here. We'll process it at the garage."
Yeah.
Um, you know, you gotta play with the cards that you're dealt.
Hmm.
You know, and you gotta respect the people that you're dealing with, respect the community that you're dealing with. You know,
Absolutely.
as you said before.
And sometimes it's better to make a tactical withdrawal and live another day.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Mm, yeah.
absolutely.
Isn't Philadelphia the police station that's like handcuffs?
The former building, we're no longer there.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, they moved from that building
Oh,
on
the
eighth
roundhouse.
on
Yeah, the
eighth and
roundhouse.
race.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
I started.
visited. I've been there. I've been there, and was taken to a very, very nice Philly cheesesteak afterwards.
Probably wasn't a good place. Where did you go? Because the place
It
where they
was a
take
place that
tourists.
was full of cops. They all looked like cops.
Because sometimes you go to places where, if you're a tourist, you think like a Pat's or
Oh
Geno's.
no, this was with the cops.
Okay.
We were doing some presentations, and they took us in. I remember it's a car with a bench seat. It was a really old car, but it was a very comfortable ride. And they took us to this for this Philly cheesesteak and said it was the best in town.
So you were in the back of the police car with a comfortable seat?
It was a very old car. It had a a full seat, like a bench
Oh,
seat.
it probably was the older cars with the cushion seats, not the
Yeah.
cars. Okay.
Yeah, incredible. It's incredible. Somebody should do a study. Some academics should do a study on when you have cops visit from other entities, where they take you first.
Yeah.
I would be interested in knowing what that is. Thailand, Philadelphia, Boston, Georgia, Washington. I'd be interested in knowing what the hell that first place is, because I go to that first place. You know what I mean?
I remember going to Vancouver once, and what's his name? Moulton. He was a local superintendent, and he landed at the airport, and he said, we're going to go and get some food. And I said, oh, that's good. And we went to this Chinese restaurant, and I was completely oblivious to what was going on. And I said, oh, you can tell it's a good Chinese restaurant because it's full of Chinese people. And he said, yeah, and so is the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the whole shopping centre. It was Chinatown. So no idea, but the food was great.
So have you been? Has Anna taken you anywhere? And I'm talking about Detective Anna Midvars. Has she taken you anywhere in Buffalo?
No, I've not been to Buffalo yet.
You've got to take her to. You've got to get her to take you to Chefs in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They're incredible Italian, and she might be comfortable with taking you to the Mafia pizza place. Mafia pizza place. We've got to get over there and take some pictures, so people have an idea. There's at least one Mafia pizza place in Philadelphia or Buffalo. But yeah, in Rochester it's Nick Saho's. In Philadelphia, it's the Cheesesteak Factory, cheesesteak places.
Well, John, I mean, I'm going to remain silent on the ones that I know about.
I went to Scranton.
Oh wow!
To the university there, and I was doing some presentations, and there were two stories from that. The first one was they put me up in the housing block with some of the staff, and one of the staff, there was only one other guy there, and he was the coach for the football team, American football, not proper football. And
hold on. Hold it. Okay. Go ahead, Stu. We're gonna let you get away with
put
that.
the fishing rod out. Soccer coach.
You can call it football. You had it. Go ahead.
So he was the soccer coach, and so we wandered down to this local bar, and we were the only two people in the bar. And I said, "I'll just 2 pints of whatever," and he said, "Oh, can I see your ID?" And I said, "Well, I've got the passport if you want." And the other guy said, "No, I haven't got anything. I'll just disappear off. I'll go and get it." And I thought, "Well, he's a tutor. I can vouch for him. Oh, no. So anyway, he went off, and the barman said, you're obviously not from here, are you? I said, no. He said, well, if he hasn't got ID with him and the police come in, then I get fined something like about $10,000 and he gets fined. I said, well, who are the police going to come in here? He said, well, it's the student police. And I just couldn't get my head around that. And then they took us to this restaurant and served. I think it was either alligator or crocodile. I can't remember which one. But
Wow.
there was a train that went around the restaurant. It was at about 6 foot high. This little model train. It was just the most amazing place.
Well, there's a thing called the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that, I take it.
Yeah, I know of it. Yeah.
It would be fantastic to be able to have you come speak to FLEOA.
Yep.
You know, do you still do presentations? Is that correct?
Yes, I do. Yeah. In fact, I'm doing
What's the chance of getting you?
Next week. I'm running it's an exercise, a tabletop exercise for a disaster for the Leicestershire Resilience Forum. So when we have any disaster in the UK, we have a local resilience forum, which includes police, fire, ambulance, voluntary sector as well, and the local authorities, and they come together to put together a response. So we've got a little exercise next week, and I still do that, and then lecturing on what you can and cannot do at those crises.
Yes, sir. Have you done any presentations for the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP?
No, I haven't.
They're a little bit lower than. I mean, no disrespect, but FOP is your street cops.
Oh yeah.
FLEOA is a federal. You know, it would be great to have you come speak to FLEOA. You know, what do you think, Greg? I mean, it would help broaden their horizon a little bit, particularly some agencies that haven't had exposure to overseas agencies.
Well, you know what I'm interested in, John? You know, Stuart brought up to the point of the militarization of Canada and the United States police departments, more so than over in the UK, but they also have a ballistics lab. I want to know, how do you guys had, or what do you do if you had that criminal element from another place come to you guys with firearms and you guys don't have them? How do you guys handle that? And what's the
Sorry, I didn't say we don't have them. We have police officers who are, we refer to them as an armed unit. So they will be fully armed all the time. And their purpose is to intervene exclusively for firearms or deadly weapon incidents. So if somebody's going down the street with a knife or something, they will be engaged, and that's their job 24/7. They are highly trained, regularly trained, and they have sufficient firepower to deal with most things. I dealt with one of the last active shooter incidents in the UK. Guy called Derek Bird, who went on the rampage in Cumbria, in the far north, and killed 12 people. He was a taxi driver, just driving around randomly killing people. He was an excellent shot as well, sadly. And then we managed to hole him up, found him, located him in a wood, and then he decided to take his own life, sadly, because we never found out why he'd gone and done that. But the firearms officers available for me from both the civil nuclear police and from our own firearms units was substantial. So it isn't that we don't have guns; it's only a small percentage of our police force that will be fully armed, but they are armed all the time and they train all the time, and that's all they do. So they don't get sidetracked with investigations and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Doctor, do you have any entity to utilize um, non-lethal uh, non-lethal weapons.
Yes, I think we refer to them as less lethal because you can
Yes.
kill someone with a most officers now have gone up to having tasers. They've all got sticks. They've all got CS gas. There isn't much movement now, so the next thing will have to be firearms. If we were to lose a number of officers, then I think we would be going down the lines of issuing firearms for officers almost inevitably. At the
And
moment, they are pretty well equipped with defensive tools, but they are defensive in nature.
yes, sir. If we have some audience members who are UK citizens who want to become UK police officers, what's their what's their best avenue to pursue that? By the way,
Go through if on police.uk, they will be able to see all the different options, all the different forces, which forces have vacancies, because there's no point applying to a force that hasn't got any vacancies. And then there are different routes in, so they could go in a route through university, they could go in directly, they could go directly as an investigator, a detective, or they could go in directly as a senior officer, either a superintendent or an inspector. So there are a lot of different routes, but it's all open, and I will almost guarantee if they just speak to their local cops, they will tell them what it's like and how to get in.
so there's a multi options to
Most
pursue.
of it involves doing courses at university, which is why I think we've lost it a little bit. I work with an organisation called London Policing College, and it's an independent organisation run by mostly ex-cops, although not exclusively. And they help with some of the training at various universities, but you're going into quite a sterile building. Nothing that tells you it's a police academy, and it's not. It's just a general university. I'm not sure that that's right for me, but that's the way in which some police training is now delivered through local universities.
Yes, sir. Is there a for the U.S. law enforcement? You have an extended 8 hour to 10 hour interview. Your initial interview to find out what kind of person you are. Are is that familiar? Is that similar in the UK?
Yeah, we have. I mean, you'll go through a lot of testing and checking. We do a lot of background checks. You're expected to produce stuff. Nowadays, there's a lot more emphasis on finance as well, so that people to see whether people might be financially vulnerable. And that's just to get in. And once you're in, if you need to go to a particular type of role, you'll be subject to serious vetting. And that vetting again is looking at vulnerabilities. Are you vulnerable politically, sexually, financially, or socially? And that vetting is pretty extensive. I've gone through it about 4 times, and
Oh
that
my God.
takes a lot.
Oh
In
my
fact, I'll give
God.
you a little anecdote about that. I was with one of my vettings, and the vetting officer asked me a lot of questions, and I'm going okay. And then she gets onto some of the accounts. She said, "I need to know which accounts you've got and where they are, who they're with." And I said, "I'm going to have to phone a friend." So I phoned my wife and got the answers because I just didn't know all the actual details. But that's okay. What they're really interested in is it possible that somebody could use information against you and therefore make you corrupt?
To blackmail you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The NCIS extended interview, initial interview is brutal.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's a vetting. It's a vetting system.
But it achieves its goal, right?
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much so. Pretty much so.
Oh my God. So, sir, doctor, you're doing presentations now. You could continue to do presentations worldwide.
Yeah, I've not. The last ones were in Vietnam, and I addressed a multi-agency conference there. The last conference I spoke at, I was sandwiched between the Chinese, the head of the Chinese intelligence at the embassy in Hanoi, and a Russian, which was.
Oh my God, Greg, what do you think
I,
about that?
I was wearing a yellow and blue tie deliberately for Ukraine, but yeah, when I went up to do my speech, the Chinese guy who seemed a nice enough guy, I said, "Oh, can you take? If I give you my phone, can you take some pictures of me?" And on your phone you can set it so it takes pictures, but it won't let you do anything else.
Right.
So I thought, well, this is trust. But luckily there was the American embassy guy sat behind me, so I don't think he would have done anything other than take the pictures. I need to take some nice pictures, actually. I
Yeah.
think the world is so connected now that you can find yourself speaking and talking to a whole group of different countries. I mean, there must have been about 20 different languages spoken at that conference, and I set my agenda when I sort of did my notes. I started off by saying welcome in about 20 different languages, just in order to sort of break the ice a little bit. And it was good. It was good. And I actually spoke again later in that conference about Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh wrote, excuse me, wrote a letter in 1932, I think it was, to the people that ran the sort of the Office of Home Affairs. Well, maybe like the Department from Homeland Security or something like that. And that sort of level, the organisation of state that was responsible for policing. And he said all these things about policing and what he expected a police officer to do. And I was reading this list and I was thinking, well, I don't disagree with any of that. It was things like, you look after your colleagues, you obey the law, you apply things fairly. And the only thing that I didn't agree with when he talked about the enemy, which he meant anyone that commits crime, and it didn't have any sense of understanding that people commit crime for all sorts of different reasons. But the rest of it could have been part of a UK policing mission book or a Canadian policing mission book. It was exactly what you'd expect somebody to say about policing, but it came from a rather bizarre source, to say the least. But they liked the fact that I picked up on that. Sorry, I'm coughing a bit here. I'll tell you what. This week I've been clearing out. I help run a community centre in my local town, and for the last week or so we've been clearing out all of the old documents. So I've been getting a lot of dust in my throat.
I hear that.
Sorry.
I hear that. So you still do presentations worldwide?
Yeah.
Basically. Well, we'd love to have you over here. For as limited a time as we can get you.
Yeah.
To give a presentation, to be able to, introduce people to law enforcement overseas. Yeah, because some people just work the street over here, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have no idea what the hell's going on.
And one day they may come across that. I mean, I when I was what was I, a chief superintendent at the time, and somebody came to me. There was a woman that lived in Vancouver who was receiving some most horrendous comments from an ex partner who lived in Bradford. And this is before the days of, the big rollout of the internet and stuff. And I said, well, we'll try and do something. Anyway, I got as much information from her. I was going over to speak to Polcybe, the Society for Police in Cyberspace in Vancouver, and met the officer that was dealing with it, took all the details, got the statement from her, came back to Bradford. And then I got one of the local officers, a rather big sergeant, to say the least, to go around and have a word with this guy. And he was absolutely stung that we, A, could find out, and two, we could actually, if we needed to, we could prosecute him in the UK for that. But it wasn't going to be possible to do that at the time because of getting the witness over. But it stopped immediately. So it solved the problem, which is, I think, I was very proud of. But that was days before we did all the sort of digital discovery and digital forensics. It's going back to about 1996, something like that.
Wow. Well, we don't want to take Dr. time up too much. We appreciate him taking the time to be with us. Greg, do you have any questions? Jake, do you have any questions?
It just seems to me that technology, from what the doctor's saying, especially with, whether you want to say a border is open or closed, it seems like the crimes that we're dealing with now, the field that you're in and what you're doing, especially what you did over in Vietnam, I think you said that was your recent thing. I think that's something we really got to get into, because we get into that realm of AI and things of that nature. And I think that's going to be the next level of law enforcement, not necessarily firearms and things like that. You're going to have to be able to get into people's phones, like you say, you had the Chinese person take your picture. It's going to have to be some kind of way that's the new age of law enforcement, I believe, is the technological age of policing.
You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, technology is progressing far faster than either police budgets or police willingness to get involved and do things. So we've moved away from the sort of era of not incompetence, but the era of where officers didn't like to see other people using technology in the police. We were frightened of the internet. We were frightened of social media. I was one of the first superintendents in the country to get on to using social media. Used it a lot, and they didn't want the media offices. We can't have police officers talking to the public through social media. Is wrong. They need to come through us, and we need to write it for them. Well, you can't have 100,000 interactions between law enforcement officers and the public managed by two people. So you've got to give them the scope and you've got to trust people. So I think giving them the technology, helping them with the technology, and giving them access to get the technology to investigate properly is absolutely imperative. And we failed at that. Every country has failed in that. But we need to get that right.
Yes, I agree. Greg, got anything?
Thank you for being here, Stuart. I really enjoyed your visit. And does Tesco still provide breakfast? If so, would you get breakfast for me at Tesco?
Absolutely. So what time is it over there at the moment?
It's 3:24.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right.
Doctor,
what time is it where you're?
Go ahead.
It's 20 past 8. Way past my bedtime.
Oh.
Doctor, I think you've hit the nail on the head several times this afternoon for us, this evening for you. We couldn't ask for a greater guest. I think it's fantastic.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it, and it's lovely listening to your perspectives. There isn't a lot of difference between us. Not a lot at all. We're all trying to do the same thing.
Well, your multidisciplinary approach to things, we really need we really need your help with some of these child sex abuse cases, right, Greg?
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. I was just thinking. I mean, I know we're running out of time, but some of the cities that you're from West Midlands Police, correct?
That was my last but one force. Cumbria was the last one.
So you
I'm
West
actually
Midlands
living in
covers
West
Birmingham,
Yorkshire in
correct?
Ilkley.
West Midlands covers Birmingham.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm very familiar with Birmingham and some of the issues throughout the
Yeah.
years. And I was sitting here thinking as you were talking, how the UK has progressed since the
Yeah.
1970s. I mean,
Yeah.
and just to recap, is very similar from what you guys experienced and what we're kind of going through now.
Yeah.
So,
I spent my my growing up youth at Birmingham University, which is the finest university in the UK.
so does that
of
mean you're a
course,
Birmingham United fan?
Birmingham City.
Birmingham
I'd be
City?
more inclined to Aston Villa at the moment. They're doing well, but my team is Bristol Rovers, which are way down the league.
And you gave us, the most cherished thing that there was. You gave us Ozzy Osbourne. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, God rest his soul.
so you're not a fan of who did I watch on Saturday?
My other club is Tottenham. I am in the Premiership. I prefer Tottenham
there you go.
because,
Oh,
but
really?
you've got to have nerves of steel with them because they're hopeless,
Yeah.
consistently inconsistent.
Oh my God, sounds like Buffalo.
Yeah.
Sounds like Buffalo. Oh my God.
I did actually play a game of football with the RCMP in Vancouver, and it was a mixed match. You had to have, I think it was 4 women on the pitch at any one time. It's really interesting. It was on their 3G pitch, the new generation of football pitches, which I'd never played on before. It was amazing, really good. We lost, but who cares?
So did Buffalo.
Right.
Is that football or soccer?
That's football.
It's
Football,
football.
they just fired their coach for some unknown reason.
Because you have the World Series for that, don't you?
Yeah, the World Cup's coming here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you have the World Series for isn't that the football or is it baseball?
That's the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the football.
Yeah.
We have the Super Bowl. You guys, we have the World Cup for your football.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we'll hope you've got the World Cup.
Those guys are really good. Those guys are shockingly good.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually going to be in Philadelphia this year. The World Cup is coming to Philly this year.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
I always follow it. It's great.
Doctor, I got to tell you, you're ahead on LinkedIn for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's been good fun.
Doctor, again, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We'd
Not a
love to have
problem.
you come over here
Would love to.
just for a couple of days to get our
Send me a ticket and I'll be on my way.
shit together, so we can get our shit together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Doctor, I really appreciate it.
That's okay.
You've hit a lot of things on the nail that we've been saying quite a while, but it brings extra forcefulness when it comes to from you, which really important. So I would imagine that AI is the next thing we're looking at too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I use it quite a lot. In fact, I've used it earlier today for getting some research done. It's so much easier than going on. If you use sort of Chat, it's so much easier than using something like Google. Google, you've got to ask the right questions. Chat, you just ask anything and it'll find you. You'll get the right thing in the end.
Yeah, a mutual friend just told me to start using AI.
There you go.
Doctor, May I ask which AI you use?
Chat GPT.
ChatGPT. How has your experience been with Grok?
I haven't used Grok. I've just stuck with Chat because I'm much more used to it. And it records everything that I do. What I like about it is you just put in a question. So, for example, the other day I wanted a policy of changing from cash to cashless in the local community centre, the Clark Foley. Well, it knows enough about the Clark Foley, what it does, how it works. And so I just said, can you write a policy for how we can move to become cashless at the Clark Foley Centre? Within 30 seconds, I've got 3 pages, few amendments. I've got a policy statement done, and that's gone to the board.
Wow.
That's the time that it saves, and it's polished English as opposed to anything else. It used to be polished American, so I had to spend most of my time getting rid of the Z's or the Z's.
Yeah.
But it's now learnt that I don't like that, so I have to do it for my audience. If I was doing it for American audience, I'd leave them in, but UK audience doesn't like that.
Yes, sir. From your experience in the UK, your experience overseas, I mean, there's a lot to be learned from you. Obviously.
I've learned a lot. I've not been anywhere where I haven't learned something, whether it's Ghana, Nigeria, Saudi. I've learned something everywhere. There's always, every day's a school day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. May I ask, have you had a chance to write any books?
No. I live where I live. I've got an author behind me, and to the right of the property. But I haven't written. I've written documents, but not a book.
We've got to either get you to write books and or get your butt over here. Help us.
Yeah,
Please help us.
absolutely.
So we all need help, and as somebody that have had your experience. Clearly, we need them. Doctor, we really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
I'll say cheerio. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care, guys.